gone, along with the lives of 3 others. And the shooter, your 15-year-old classmate Ethan Crumbley. Now imagine it from a parent's perspective. You send your child to school, expecting them to come home safe. Instead you get a phone call saying they're never coming home again. All because of a teen who knew exactly what he was doing. Journals, photos, plans, and undeniable proof that this attack was premeditated. Crime youth rates are estimated to be about 424,300, and 80% of the juvenile offenders go back and repeat the same bad behavior. This is exactly why we believe juveniles should be convicted and treated as adults when they commit serious and violent crimes. Intent matters, consequences matter, and justice must be served regardless of the age. Today, our team will convince you that juveniles should be convicted and treated as adults when they commit serious and violent crimes because the victims and victims' family deserve justice. Juveniles are old enough to realize their wrongdoings of the crimes, and the fact that they aren't considering the impact on the community means that their actions will not be tolerated.
Imagine being confined in a cold, dark cell, knowing you'll spend the next 30 years of your life isolated from everything you know and everyone you love. The weight of this sentence can lead to a feeling of despair and hopelessness, especially for a young person whose mind and spirit is still developing. They deserve a system that recognizes the potential for growth and rehabilitation. The issue whether or not juveniles should be treated as adults has been very controversial 3 years due to the fact about how people view young people in our society. In this debate, we'll highlight why juveniles should not be treated as adults because most children in the justice system have suffered in a riot of violence and trauma and will continue to face high risks of sexual abuse, physical assault, and suicide when not given the proper age-appropriated environment.
Juveniles should be treated as adults because of the victims that deserve justice and accountability. It's the only way to achieve that. There must be justice and accountability, no matter what challenges the perpetrators may have endured. For example, in the article, should juveniles be tried as adults? It states, for many victims, the juvenile court systems have been a far cry from justice. Families of murder victims, rape targets, and victims from other serious crimes have been left abandoned without a sense of closure, a sense of protection. Some feel like their lost was left behind. Another example is in the article, the controversial debate of trying juveniles as adults in the criminal justice system. It states, they believe that trying juveniles as adults is a necessary step in ensuring that violent and dangerous criminals are punished and accountable for their actions. These 2 pieces of evidence show that it's not only fair for the person that committed the crime to be held accountable for their actions, because the damage made to the victims are not only painful, but in some cases permanent. Those that were harmed don't get a second chance, so neither should they.
Juveniles should be charged and treated as adults. For the reason of they're able to get jobs and drive, they should be able to know right from wrong. For example, in Article Ethics Chapter 8, it states juveniles have the requisite moral sense, the ability to tell right from wrong by the ages of 7 to 15, depending on which state they live in, and should be held accountable for their actions. Another example can be found in Article Children Know Right from Wrong, a case for informing children about the laws that apply to them. It states the concept of right and wrong was found within the curriculum to be taught unacceptability and acceptability behavior. And right and wrong, in such concepts, there are legal implications. It's to be harmful, discussed like violence, hate crime, sexual abuse with links to age of consent and misuse of drugs.
Aiden Fucci was only 14 years old when he stabbed a 13-year-old girl from his class 114 times. When Fucci was arrested after the authorities found the girl's body, he posted videos of himself in the police car on Snapchat.
Snapchat, you get numbers.
That's you're all over the internet network. This is crazy.
Video evidence showed Fucci walking together before she was murdered, then Fucci running away from the scene.
114 stab wounds, 49 defensive wounds, 35 wounds to the head and neck, 29 to the back and shoulder, and 6 fatal wounds.
The judge's sentence was proportional to the gravity of Fucci's unforgivable crime.
Having entered a plea of guilty to the crime of first-degree murder, I sentence you to life in prison.
Of the defendant in the Oxford school shooting
contains cries for help, too.
Absolutely. I got a look at 2 pages of this journal. Let me give you 4 things written by Ethan Crumbley on 2 of these pages, like, I will tell close friends not to come the day of the shooting. He writes, I have lost every hope of life. Also writes, help me, and I want to shoot up the school so badly. And that is just the start. The local board defenders obtaining these key photos from the Oxford school shooting. That is Ethan Crumbley's backpack on the bathroom floor where he first pulled this semi-automatic handgun from that backpack and began his horrific shooting spree.
Juveniles should not be tried and treated as adults because the majority of juveniles have gone through serious childhood abuse that will continue when incarcerated with adults. For example, on the website known as Coalition for Juvenile Justice, on paragraph 4 it states, youth in the justice system has frequently encountered higher degrees of trauma than the average youth population. The rate of traumatic victimization has gone as high to be as 75%. So, instead of imprisoning children for acting out as a result of their home lives, we need to take initiative to ensure that at-risk youth do not prey to the hands of our dysfunctional justice system. Another example is also on the website known as Coalition for Juvenile Justice. On paragraph 4 it states, childhood abuse and psychiatric problems are significant among incarcerated youth. The overwhelming number of imprisoned adolescents were neglected or abused as children and are suffering from psychological disorders while serving time. This shows why juveniles should not be tried and treated as adults, because they have been through major abuse when they were kids, which influences their actions. Sending them to adult prison can cause even more harm, and that does not solve the actual problems they face. Instead of giving them a harsh punishment, we should help them rebuild their lives and break away from all of the violence. This way, we create a safer and better society for everyone. I will now be showing you a video of real-life evidence.
Engbata has been in his cells for 4 months now. He hasn't been to court yet because his parents can't be found. The age of criminal responsibility here is 14.
Juveniles should not be tried and treated as adults because the majority of juveniles experience emotional damage throughout their lives and the ability to control themselves is still developing at this current state. For an example, on the website known as Coalition for Juvenile Justice, paragraph 3 states the brain structure and function undergoes considerable changes during adolescence. This shows how children are more vulnerable to irrational decision-making caused by impulsivity, reward, or sentencing behavior due to psychological immaturity. Here it shows the typical development of a child's brain, but here, as you can clearly see, the child's brain of someone who's been exposed to neglect, trauma, and abuse, the area responsible for decision making is clearly not there. Here it shows how adults are able to think through before they commit their crimes, while children are more provoked by attention and rewards. Another example I have is on the website Juvenile Law Center, Children in Prison. It states too many incarcerated youth are subject to solitary confinement, often for 22 to 24 hours per day. They're put through strip searches, shackles, and chemical sprays. These abusive practices cause physical injuries, psychological harm, and emotional trauma. This shows why juveniles should not be tried as adults because it's clear their emotional pain and their self-control is still developing. So instead of punishing them for their mental stability, we should help them for a better future outcome. Here in Ethan Crumbley's journal, it says that I have zero help for my mental problems. And it's causing me to shoot up the school. He said, I want help, but my parents don't listen to get me help, so I can't get any help. He also texted a friend in April 2021 that said he was hearing people talking to him and seeing someone in the distance. I actually asked my dad to take me to the doctor yesterday, and he sent me some pills and told me to suck it up. So how are we supposed to be able to help juveniles if when they ask, we ignore them?
Anna, you stated that adult brains first plan out what they're going to do before they do the crime. But in the video that we showed, it shows Ethan Crumbley planned out who he was going to kill and what exactly he was going to do. Also, another statement that I have, it states, for example, in the article, juveniles should be treated as adults. It states, however, regardless of how old one is, murder or rape are not the crimes that should be committed without a culprit putting effort, without a culprit putting in thought, without putting thought into it. Any teenager who torments and slaughters an individual or commits rape, which is heinous and grave in nature, crime, thought not to be treated as a child. there should be no excuse for teenagers who carry out crimes that break the law. Also, another example, an article, should juveniles be treated as adults? For example, many victims, the juvenile court have been a true crime for justice. Families of murder victims, rape targets, and other victims of other serious crimes have been left abandoned without a sense of closure, a sense of protection, and a sense of protection. Oh, shit. These pieces of evidence clearly prove that juveniles should be treated as adults because there's a high percent of rape offenders that don't care what they're doing. And also evident that the so-called rehab being done within the juvie is ineffective, and this only makes our youth believe that there will be little to no consequences for the poor choices because they're still kids.
Zayana, you also stated that the lack of brain development makes kids think impulsively, but if chapter ethic 8 states that I can't think, bro. There's a no, I can't think. Just read on the thing. That if the requisite moral sense by the ages of 7 to 15, it also.
Goodness.
Stay on the board and read off the board. I can't think because I can't think over my God.
Just read off the board.
Let me see. Let me do. Sayana, we strongly disagree with you because you stated that juvenile support and that their brain is not developed yet, right? You say that they have two parts of the brain that don't work, and that it explains that adults can, make plans and everything, right? You stated that. But we can see Aiden Crumble, he created a plan. He went and tried. He did and told his friends who he didn't want to kill, of course, because they're friends, I guess. But he did make a plan. And you're saying that only those juveniles that pass through traumas and to all these issues, they don't get a supported brain. Then why would you tell me right now that Ethan Crombie don't deserve to be tried and treated as adults because of these traumas and issues that he tried, even though he made a plan? I'm just trying to be obvious. You're saying that they can't process a plan, but they just did. He made that plan. He killed it. He killed innocent people. It wasn't their fault. It was the fault of the parents. But also, we gotta make sure that he's old enough to believe and know what he was doing. He bought a gun or whatever he did, and he killed innocent people. What about the people, the victims, the parents of the juveniles? What about them? Their cries are now here. What about that?
Samantha, you stated that no matter what challenges the perpetrators have endured, they should be taken accountability for, but you fail to realize that there are places that have programs to change and rehabilitate juveniles to make them a better person. They also deserve the right to be free from harm in prison. For example, in Coalition for Juvenile Justice, it states, the purpose of the juvenile justice system was to divert young people from the devastating punishments of the criminal court and to encourage rehabilitation based on the requirements of each individual element. Also, Civil Rights Division states, including policing, access to counsel, fair court procedures, equal treatment for children regardless of race or ethnicity, medical care, mental health care, special education, use of isolation, and protection from physical and sexual abuse. This proves that juveniles' rights are enforced and they have a better ethical punishment to juvie instead of them possibly having their rights broken by being imprisoned with adults. Many of our kids are clearly crying out for help, and we as a society need to focus even more on meeting them where they are developing mentally. For example, a 10-year-old
black girl with a known disability was handcuffed and arrested by 3 police officers at her public elementary school in Honolulu, allegedly for her participation in creating a cartoon-style drawing with other children. Also, in your video, they said, clearly you didn't see it right, it said that in his journal, in Ethan Crumbley's journal, he wrote help, which means he was asking for help, but he never got it. So how is he supposed to be responsible for what he did if he never got his help that he clearly asked for?
Angel, you stated that being a child does not give you the right to do a crime and get out without consequences. However, you misinterpreted what we said. We never stated that juveniles have the right to do a crime and get out without consequences, but we stated that they should have the same consequence as adults. For example, in the website known as Why Young People Shouldn't Be Tried as Adults, paragraph 3 states, despite the fact that minors do not think or respond like adults, significant offenses are frequently prosecuted in adult courts with adult-like penalties. The courts focus on sentencing adults who are convicted of any crime. Also, in the website known as Law Offices of John D. Rogers, paragraph 10 states, the goal of the juvenile justice system should be to both rehabilitate and educate young offenders, while also holding them accountable for their actions and protecting society from future harm. This proves why juveniles have the right to be both rehabilitated and integrated into the world as a fully transformed human being, and they will still be punished for their actions, and young offenders will not be a threat to both themselves and society as a whole.
Overall, it's only fair that juveniles should be tried and treated as adults because their poor choices resulted in the loss of innocent lives, and the severity of their crimes demands justice for the victims. It's only common sense that these dangerous children need to pay for what they have done. We have exposed all the evidence proving that juveniles should be convicted and treated as adults because it's only fair to those that were harmed. They were mature enough to know right from wrong, and it's up to us to show that actions like this have actions like this will not go unpunished to keep our society safe.
At this point, it's hard to understand how anyone can still believe it's fair to punish a child like they're a fully responsible adult, even though they have no control of the environment that their parents have put them through, leading to trauma, neglect, or abuse. Our team has proved to everyone here today that putting a child in a situation like this and putting them in a jail created specifically for adults will further perpetuate a life of abuse, violence, crime, and even suicide. Does treating them like adults make us safer? You guys suggest that we should just give up on them before they had a second chance. Justice should be about fairness and not revenge. There's nothing fair about holding a child as the same standard as someone twice their age.
Country as adults, because most children